Sleep Hacking with London Real, brought to you by Bulletproof. Learn how to hack your sleep.
You know, modern science is based on the principle of give us one free miracle and we'll explain the rest. And the one free miracle is the appearance of all the matter and energy and all the laws that govern it from nothing in a single instant. And
I could never quite get my head around that.
That's because they just plow through it. You know, Terence called it a singularity. It's like something we assume and then build on top of that.
That's right. Well, that's it. His one free miracle, you see. Anyway, the thing is, back to just briefly on the expansion thing. When in the late 90s they discovered that the universe is not slowing down in its expansion; it's speeding up, the reverse of what it should have been doing. So how do you explain that? Well, answer: there must be some other kind of energy that no one had ever known about before, called dark energy, because you can't see it or detect it in any normal way, and you add in just the right amount to explain the facts. And so they've now arrived at the position where 96% of the universe is made of dark matter and dark energy, whose nature is totally unknown to us. The matter and energy you learned about at school, and that I learned about at school, is less than 4% of reality. So how do we know whether the total amount of dark matter and energy is conserved, always the same? Can it be converted to regular matter and energy? Can regular matter and energy disappear and turn into dark matter and energy? Nobody has a clue. Therefore, this fixed law, you know, the assumption it's all the same, sounds really solid, unquestionable, but when you think about it, it turns out to be really flaky and just a kind of illusion.
What does Dr. Stephen Hawking say to you when you say something like that? You cannot prove the Big Bang, or you can't justify. What do they say?
Well, I think I haven't actually personally discussed it with Hawking, but I have talked about it to various cosmologists.
I assume all you guys hang out together. So.
Well, no, I do hang out with some cosmologists, okay. And I do ask them this kind of thing. Okay. And I ask them, you know, why have you got all this dark energy and dark matter, and how can you just invent it? Well, they say, well, it's not an invention, it's a hypothesis. And so, well, I mean, that's just a quibbling over words. But then, you know, how do you know the Big Bang really happened? Well, the answer is it fits their equations. If you assume all the laws of nature are the same today as they were at the beginning and they haven't changed, you take the expanding universe as we can observe it today and you just crank it back in time. Obviously, it's getting bigger and bigger now. So if you crank it back in time, it gets smaller and smaller until you reach a point where it's vanishingly small, and that's the Big Bang. The whole thing is a tissue of assumption and speculation. It's not a fact. It's a theory, and it's not very well supported by facts. There aren't that many facts involved. And the dark matter and dark energy are theories. There's no independent evidence for them, and nobody knows what they are.
You know, Brian, we always come back to the same thing, you and I. I think Brian is inherently skeptic, and I'm inherently perhaps naive or a little bit more... I've sided with you on several of these ideas. You know, Brian, I always come back to the ayahuasca thing because Brian and I, we took this sacred vine plant that gives you a hallucinogenic trip or a trip deep into your own mind. And for me, I always ask the question in my mind, Brian, surely having done ayahuasca and having seen everything you saw and been given these crazy lessons by a plant, doesn't that fly in the face of everything that you were taught in the materialist scientific school or background which you come from? Doesn't it, like, don't you think, well, maybe if a plant can give me messages, maybe the law of gravity is not so set in stone?
It's an interesting question, and I'll probably have to quote Terence McKenna. It is, as he would say, you know, perturbing consciousness is the only way that we can figure out that consciousness exists. Or to quote another Terence quote, he's like, I don't know who discovered water, but it certainly wasn't a fish.
Is Terence in the Daniel Craig Fassbender group now?
Yes, I have a crush now on Terence. We'll talk more about him later. This week on London Real, we have astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I wake up every morning astonished that an astrophysicist can have 1.7 million Twitter followers. The cosmos is anything where it's a frontier of human knowledge of how the world works. There's so many forces that want to deny a scientific truth just because it conflicts with their ideology. I thought of myself, because I could wrestle, as sort of a defender of geeks. There is no teacher in any time in my life, from kindergarten through 12th grade and beyond, who ever would have said, he'll go far. And the act of finding out is the lesson, not the lesson itself.
On Sunday, London Real presents Neil deGrasse Tyson, Cosmos.
I'm happy to report that there's an appetite for the cosmos out there.